talking to this. You and your
I don't know if I'm gonna get them anymore.
Any money on the soup?
Because
Yes.
if I do, I got a plan
Yes.
the next day that
100
I'm
miles
gonna be
round trip
doing
every
nothing
day.
because it wipes me out.
We bought a car.
My wife
When
watched
we
those
retired,
two
it was
pairs.
200,000 miles.
I'm actually gonna fly.
I said I'd like to see San Francisco only because most of them, but
We got our money's worth.
Daughter's driving.
really a fuel efficient car?
It was a little Dodge Start. Last year's model that they didn't sell. It was a 17
we still have stories about that.
And we literally
That's all I need to hear.
Ended up getting directions to a
six
restaurant.
sets of tires
Oh,
on
it's
it.
just a few blocks from here.
It was a great car. Got 36 miles a gallon.
Yeah.
I walked in.
Can't say.
I'd still be driving
We
it except
figured out what she really
rear end me.
It's a few blocks.
I have 7 o'clock, so I'll call a meeting to order.
The right thing to do,
Oh
but
my
I don't know now.
God.
Roll call by the county clerk.
We both laughed.
Get present.
We have 27 present and 2 absent.
Thank you. And Supervisor Jekyll called me today. He is sick. And Supervisor Zarling,
He's online.
he's online. Okay, excellent. George his voice was so bad, he said he didn't even want to Zoom. So, all right. With that, Pledge of Allegiance. Supervisor Price, will you lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take a moment to reflect. Please be seated. We're in compliance with the open meetings law, Mr. Waymeyer.
We're in compliance, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
So moved by Supervisor Paulson, second by Supervisor Backlund. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Approval of the minutes of the January 16th meeting. Mr. Winnicky, Supervisor Winnicky.
I would move approval of the January 16th minutes as presented with the correction that Supervisor Richardson was listed as absent and should have been listed as excused.
So noted.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Goulig. Any other corrections that anybody noticed? Additions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Communications.
There is a notice of public hearing, planning and zoning, which is February 15th, 2024, starting at 7 p.m. Then you will find the green monthly treasurer's report. And then we also have some retirement recognitions.
Okay. With retirement recognitions then, Ms. Palm.
Sorry about the delay getting up here. Good evening. We have 11 retirees since the month of October to present. We missed doing it in January for you. With the average length of service with these of all of them, over 20 years. We had over 252 years of experience with Jefferson County who have retired within essentially the last quarter, or last 4 months. I'm going to read through that. I know we have a couple of them here today that I'm going to ask our administrator to come up for one, and our chief deputy and or sheriff to come up for a couple of the others. We have Bradley Reason, who's with the Sheriff's Department for over 22 years. Sharon Endel, and I wish she was here because I kind of have stories about her, but we have a little over 16 years. She was actually here longer than that. Sharon had started with Countryside when we had owned Countryside for a number of years as an LPN, and then went to Human Services as a nutrition site manager, retired, and then came back and helped them out for several more years. And I think she's maybe finally hanging up her hat. Maybe we'll see her again. But Again, it was 16 and a half years with this last stint that she was with us. James Kraus, I know him more familiar Jimmy Kraus from Helenville, a couple other people here. He was with the highway shop for almost 28 years. Tom Klemke was with the sheriff's office for just 23 years. Terry Jerzyk, many of you probably recognize that name. She was with Human Services as our leader house supervisor for just a little bit over 24 years. Deb Magritz is another name I know many of you know. She recently is retiring tomorrow, actually. Her last day with our zoning office is where she is retiring from after almost 35 years of service with the county, which is one of our longest term employees with Jefferson County. We have Deputy Scott Bondurant from the Sheriff's Department with, again, almost 25 years of service, and Lola Klatt from Human Services with just 10 years of service, so I was a short timer. Also, I would like to, I'm going to say the names of our other retirees, and then I'm going to ask if our county administrator would come up to present certificate to. First is, many of you know this name, Blair Ward, who was our corporation counsel, was with our county for a little over 9 years, and definitely had influenced a number of other counties prior to that.
So Blair's the short timer of the group. You know, and I appreciate he shaved today as he came back. Presentation. So when Blair came on, you know, there's a couple things that in his interview process that he wanted to talk about and of his experience. But one of the critical things that came forward was he liked to bake. So if you did not know, one of these things he wanted to make sure we all knew is he knew how to bake chocolate chip cookies. We did have a lot of conversations with Portage County to make sure they're edible chocolate chip cookies. But at the end of the day, there's a lot more serious things about Blair. And I think many of you know how he served this county for 9 years in terms of giving us advice, not only from a legal standpoint, but for me, he really became the yin and yang for what I did and how we helped work together as a team of how the county functioned. There's days that Blair would shut the door and I'd have an opportunity to calm down a little bit, right, Blair? But he'd always give the advice of where we were heading and kind of talk through the options that we had as you look to the future. So it was not always legal advice, right? It was a lot of policy conversations, was how do we deal with staff? How do we just deal with things, right? We had a kismet of military. For those who do not know, 2020, Blair picked a great time to go do a deployment over a place called Ukraine. We waved from the distance as he was dealing with COVID in Ukraine, as well as we were figuring things out, and Atlanta really stepped up with the team, et cetera. But he was there quite a bit to answer emails, zooming in, just things he did when he was away too for the office and the county that many of you probably don't even know that he did as he was serving our country as well. And then at the end of the day, I think many also know, Blair loves a good beer. And so if you're bored and you will find him and want to say hi to Blair, Brew with a View is always a good option to find Blair, and he will tell you which is the best beer to have. But with all that being said, Blair had great dedicated service to our county. And I think many of our staff in here, we could open up the whole thing to have a conversation of people talking about Blair. But thank you for everything you did for myself and for Jefferson County and your faithful years of service, not only to the county, but your ongoing service to the state of Wisconsin and the National Guard and the United States Army. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Well, thank you. It's wonderful to be back, and it's good to see everybody again. A lot of familiar faces. It's hard to believe 9.5 years passed since I started here. Want to certainly express my appreciation to all the employees that I had the opportunity to work with, the department heads, Ben especially talked a little bit about what we do. It always seems like there was a new issue that came across our desks every day, and we had to handle that issue. And the next day we get a new issue that we hadn't seen before, and that would keep us pretty busy. And I also want to make sure that I recognize the county board. You as a county board, as a legislative body, when I started here, many of you weren't on the board. I did a quick count, maybe 5 or 6 of you were on the board in 2014. So this board has evolved. And one thing that I've noticed, which has stayed the same, is the way that this board conducts business. as a legislative body with professionalism, decorum, civility, in a way that is a role model to other legislative bodies. And that's one thing that always impressed me about the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors. And it's things like that which give me the ability to look back on my 25 years in the Corporation Counsel office and say, I can't think of a better way to have ended my career than serving as the Jefferson County Corporation Counsel. So I thank you all for that.
I didn't even have to warn him. We had a 3-minute time limit on his speech. Before I get to our last two, I do want to say in front of you tonight, you saw some chocolates. I think that's thanks to our Corporation Counsel, probably specifically Serena sitting over there, for all of you. And you also will have a new lanyard if you care to wear that with your ID badge. It does depict our new logo for Jefferson County, and so those have been distributed to all of our employees as well. So hopefully you appreciate that as well as all the work that's gone into our strategic plan and getting that new logo and out there promoting Jefferson County. With that, I'd like to call the sheriff and our chief, however they're pointing at each other. They're going to fight over this. For our last two, I will call up first Deputy Scott Yamber, who was worked in the jail, I think, his entire career for almost 27 years, started in April of 1997.
Just a couple of things. Scott just retired with us, and to be real honest with you, it's kind of a bittersweet thing. Scott started shortly after our new building was in place, and I always used to laugh at him because I was much fatter and much wider, and Scott was about the size of a 2x4, and I always teased him. I said, "You got to wear a vest." I said, "because you're never going to stop anything." He is a tremendous individual. His sense of humor is just exceptional. Scott had the one ability, and no matter how stressful it was down in the jail, and there are days it was extremely stressful, you could see Scott make a comment, and everybody would like, they might shake and roll their eyes at him, but he could always bring that tension level down. He just had that ability. And one of the things in his 26-year career was he was a range officer. Scott had the ability to make people comfortable. People that were not comfortable shooting, Scott would just bring them to that point where, like, it's not a problem, we're going to get through this. And it wasn't always me, but he had that ability to just train the younger staff and he did a good job. It's going to be difficult to replace him. He was a negotiator, and I think one of the reasons we picked him as a negotiator is he just had that ability to communicate, that ability to calm people. And that's not always that easy to find. Scott, you're definitely going to be missed. Good news is you're over by Hondo, so. Is there anywhere else? So we don't like a lot of people moving in. We like to keep it small. You can visit, just not stay. Scott? Sure.
Scott?
He does. You know he wants
Use the mic.
Well, thank you all. it's been an honor and a privilege to serve the community of Jefferson County. There wasn't one day I was not proud to wear that uniform. Thank you.
I was gonna say, hang around, we'll do some pictures at the end. And then the last individual I would like to recognize this evening is Captain Brian Olson. If he would please come forward. And for those that you don't know, Brian has helped us out throughout the past few years in helping us make these plaques that we present. So I was wondering what he put on his own plaque, but he did like a true and honest job on that.
I figured either Brian was going to make this fantastic plaque for himself, or he was just going to have a piece of wood in there and say he did it. But again, it's difficult when you lose two really good people. Brian worked in basically every division we had, from the patrol to the jail as a supervisor to eventually becoming our administrative captain. Brian, in these last few years when hiring was a very, very unique situation in law enforcement, trying to find qualified people, really put his effort into getting us good people and doing his best to get people to come in and take the test. And it was a little bit easier. Years ago, when we said there was a test date, everybody just came. We found out that you have to email them, text them, probably get a phone call to them in order to get them to show up. Now, I don't know if they just don't believe what's really going to happen or whatever, but Brian was able to encourage people and help them get through this. One of the great things with Brian, much like Scott, his ability to talk to people. That is one of the probably key things that Brian had in his entire career. I don't think Brian had an enemy. He always had, well, maybe Terry. No. No, legitimately, Brian had that he could talk to anybody. Maybe they'd always agree, but they always came out respecting his opinion and what he brought forward with it. And I'll be honest, when Brian said it was time to go, it was kind of a shock to me. But I think he knew it would be because he wanted to make sure he told me first. And I truly meant it when I said it to him that day that he would be missed. He has such a wealth of institutional knowledge with the sheriff's office that both the chief and I miss that, being able to go, Brian, what about this? Brian, what about the jail? Because he was down there for so many years. What about the patrol? He was on patrol for so many years. It's just all that knowledge that it's hard to replace. So, Brian, we hope you continue to keep making the blacks. Thank you so much. In case you hadn't seen it before.
I truthfully can say that I'm very, very proud to have worked for the sheriff's office for as long as I did. Truly honored to have worked under Sheriff Milbrath for the majority of that. Probably close to 30 years of that, I believe was for you. They made it a tremendous place to work at. And like I tell the people that come and apply for us today, it's a family. When you come here, it's all about family. It's not about any of the other stuff. If you want to go talk to the sheriff, he'll talk to you. You want to go talk to the chief, he'll talk to you. They do really care. And that is what I am going to miss the most with being gone. But I do know that I can always walk in and say hi anytime that I want. And just so you guys also know, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still in town here, and I'll still be making it. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you all for your service to Jefferson County. This takes us to public comment. Is there any public comment tonight? Seeing none. Special order of business. Presentation of Level 3 Health Department designation. Mr. Joe Larson from the state of Wisconsin. And with the Health Department, please, I see you all back there. Come on up.
What a great, uplifting way to start a meeting. This is wonderful. I'll start with just a brief introduction. My name is Joe Larson. I work as the Southern Region Director for the Division of Public Health and the Department of Health Services. I just want to thank Chairman Noss for the invitation to be on the agenda to the County Board of Supervisors. It is wonderful to be back in Jefferson County, and I appreciate the invitation. I have a lot of absolutely wonderful things to say about this health department. I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible because I know it's a long night for all of you. But as I start, just a really brief introduction to what is the DHS 140 review. Why do we do it? What is the process? So I'll just start by Wisconsin Administrative Code, DHS 140, and statute requires that every local health department in the state of Wisconsin be reviewed every 5 years. This helps to assure that we have a strong public health system in Wisconsin. And it's also to assure that local health departments are in compliance with statute and rule. And it also assesses quality improvement opportunities for the health department and also for the state public health system. So the name of the 140 review process comes from Administrative Code Chapter DHS 140. The review process involves a team from DHS and usually Division of Public Health staff. We discuss the work of the health department and we review documentation. So there's some required documentation that every health department must submit. After the visit, the review team provides a recommendation to the state health officer with the written findings of what we saw at the review and provides a letter of recommendation and a certificate to the Board of Health chair with that review finding. There's 3 different levels of health departments in the state of Wisconsin. Just a note that Wisconsin is the only state in the United States that actually has a statute that classifies health departments based on a level. As of December of last year, there are 3 local health departments at a level 1. There are 38 health departments at a level 2 and 44 health departments at a level 3. So it's pretty much split pretty evenly between levels 2 and 3 for health departments. So onto the findings. We had a lot of wonderful things that we saw with the health department, and I want to highlight some of those strengths that we saw. So after this, our state health officer, Paula Tran, has determined that the Jefferson County Health Department has met the requirements of a level 3 health department. It's not often that health departments in the state transition from one level. So you may know that Jefferson County Health Department was a level 2 health department prior to this review and requested that we review them as a level 3 health department. And what that means is that the health department has to show that there are certain levels of commitment and services and things that they provide to the community that goes above and beyond, and that's what it takes to become a level 3 health department. So it's a true testament to the leadership of Health Officer Chilson and to the commitment of the staff that they were able to show in this review and in the work and their commitment to the community that they are a level 3 health department. So just a couple of the strengths that we pulled out, because I think it's really important to share really what they're doing well. One of the things that we saw that was really clear in this review is the level of commitment and engagement with the community. The health department really understands the unique needs of the residents, and this is a true testament to the priority of the community members, to the priority of the Board of Health, to all of you as county board supervisors, to meeting the community where they are. One of the examples that we pulled out was really the unique qualifications of the Board of Health and that process to to a point based on unique backgrounds, experiences, connections with the community. And that really goes a long way to both bring the community's needs and what the community is looking for to the health department, but also to bring that back to the community. What are the priorities? What is the ways that the health department and all of you are promoting health in the community? That's a really important piece. Another is the assurance role of the health department. One very key strength of the department that we saw over and over in every response was their ability and their diligence in collecting data and surveillance to really identify what are the gaps, what are the needs in the community, and find unique ways to address them. With the data, the health department could clearly articulate the value of the work that they did and why it's important in the community. But one thing that was really important in all of this is recognizing what is the scope of the health department, what are the resources that they bring, and what are the limitations. And the department doesn't let the limitations of resources stop them from meeting the needs of the community. In fact, it's the complete opposite. They recognize where there is a limitation and a shift in public health from moving from individual services to finding ways to serve the entire community. And that's done in key partnership. It's done by bringing people to the table, understanding where the resources, where the assets are in the community, bringing the right people to the table to meet those needs, recognizing where they need to help fill the gaps, and knowing that the health department can't solve every problem and every issue, but can bring the people to the table to help do that. And that builds commitment, and it builds buy-in from the community, and really shows that role. And then the last thing that I really want to highlight is their strategic planning efforts. They effectively use a strategic plan to really prioritize and guide their work. They incorporate the Board of Health feedback and community involvement through all stages of their processes. They engage early and often when needs arise. And they link very clearly to the state plan. They link very clearly to your county plan, to your comprehensive plan, which I see quality of life is spread throughout all of that, and the priorities that all of you are taking in the community, and what speaks to quality of life more than good health, and that's really where they have shined. So I just want to say that the strengths of this department, and there are numerous more than I can count here, and I know you want me to stop talking here soon, so I'll keep it short, but it's just a commitment of the leadership of Health Officer Chilson, of all of the staff, the commitment that you take of your board, of the county supervisors to meeting the needs and really serving the community well. So my DPH colleagues and I, we really look forward to continuing to work with the health department and the staff, furthering development of the health department and helping to best serve your community. And in closing here, I just want to say, as a representative of the state of Wisconsin, the Department of Health Services and the Division of Public Health, just expressing our appreciation for the leadership that is provided by the department, by all of you, by the staff and the community, to provide that foundational public health work in Jefferson County. So it is a privilege to be able to present this Level 3 designation certificate to Health Officer Chilson and the staff and all of you. Congratulations. This is well worth it.
All of you know I talk really fast, so it will go really quick, I promise. I've been in public health for almost 12 years now, and I can truly say that this team that's assigned me right now is hands down the most dedicated and skilled group of people I've ever worked with. So I am really honored in that regard. And we've worked really hard, especially after COVID, to rebuild our department. But we would not have been able to do it without the county board, the Board of Health, and the community being there to support us every single step of the way. So I'm really honored to continue this process and have all of you and whoever comes on the board next to be there to support us, and thank you for everything.
Thank you very much. Keep up the good work. Takes us to item B under special order of business, strategic plan update. This will be on Zoom from Mr. Lucci, and he's in Washington, D.C. as we speak.
Hello from Washington, D.C. I am just wrapping up the National Association of Counties Conference. Got some great lessons learned, and I encourage next year to get some additional county board members there. Let me see if I can share my screen. Okay. So I want to be providing these quarterly implementation plan updates. As you remember, the board adopted a strategic plan that included language on vision statement, mission statement, priority areas, and then goals and objectives under those goals. What we're trying to do now at a staff level is determine action steps and responsible staff to lead us towards those objectives and those goals. I'd like to provide these quarterly. The implementation plan is still being written, but once it's written, we'll be able to provide updates on how we're progressing along each item. Make sure the goals and objectives that you set are getting done on a timely fashion. So the 4 teams are meeting regularly. As a reminder, we have the 4 areas: diverse housing opportunities. That priority lead is Matt Zangel. We have highly regarded quality of life. The priority lead there is Kevin Weissman. Intentional economic growth, led by Deb Reinbold. And transformative government, led by Brian Udovich. The teams have met at least once for all. Some have met twice. Some are working on a 3rd time soon. On these dates through January and February, we had a couple dates that were impacted by snow, but everyone was still able to get at least on Zoom. Team participation has been steady, but we could always use more volunteers. So in your communications with department heads and senior level staff, if you could encourage them to participate in teams that might interest them. We are having some in this early part where maybe an objective is not necessarily relevant to the job descriptions for these people that are sitting on, or like was alluded to earlier in quality of life. Our next meeting, we're going to be talking a lot about public health, and so we've asked Elizabeth to attend that meeting. So some items are not necessarily directly relevant to job descriptions, but actually having more people in the room really helps spark some really good brainstorming sessions, some ideas that might be a little bit, they might not be necessarily directly connected, but they've really led us down some interesting paths. So I want to thank everyone who's participating on these teams so far. We'd like to get the implementation plan written by the summer this year, so we can begin working on them and start crossing some items off the list. So what we're identifying are the action steps that lead us towards those objectives and the goals. We're making sure we have an owner and a person who's responsible for them, so that responsibility doesn't get diffused to the point where no one is responsible. We want to have one person on each team accountable for making sure the work is being done. That doesn't necessarily mean that the work is going to be done by that person, but they're going to be the end of the day, the person that's going to come to that team and give us a ready and full update on exactly where we're at. And if we need to change maybe some of our timelines, some of our identified resources, things like that. We want to have due dates, specific dates as to when we'll be getting some of these action steps done. We are going to begin identifying resources needed, whether that is physical resources, whether it's money, whether it's staff time. And then finally, key performance indicators that will help us understand whether what we're doing is actually working. So an example of a key performance indicator might not be held X number of meetings, but it might be had X number of people attend those meetings, so that we're actually making sure that we are engaging with the community in a way that is meaningful. So you as a full board adopted the goals and objectives. We are not changing those. We might come back with some suggestions, some language, but we are working to how we get to those. One final thing we're looking at is how we're going to present this to the public through some type of dashboard. We have some ideas either through existing tools we have like Zen City, or some vendors, or MIS has also had some ideas on ways to build out dashboards for integration into our website. So far, in these early years of the strategic plan, Across all four of these priority areas, we're doing a lot of inventorying, taking stock of our current resources, our current data, the partnerships we have, the materials we have, the information we have, the websites we have. And so we're doing a good amount of information gathering. One thing that has come up, though, is funding and staff levels. We are going to be tying all of these goals and objectives into our priority-based budgeting. So that is going to help us understand our costing and things like that across programs and how those relate to the items that you as a board have identified as being part of where we want to take this county. But it is worth noting specifically that two of the four priority areas, diverse housing opportunities and intentional economic growth, fall under the umbrella of the Economic Development Consortium, Thrive Economic Development, which is staffed by 4 people. And so half the plan falls under basically a 4-person department. HR also has a heavy lift and administration has some. So there are some departments that are seeing a fair amount of work that's going to be handed their way. So that's something just to keep in mind in the context of the overall plan, the overall budgets is, do we need to shift resources around, reimagine job duties, things like that. So I will put on the end a copy of this strategic plan, and I will share with anyone who asks if you'd like to see where we're at with the implementation plan. What I'm doing here is just kind of trying to give you an update on where each group is at, and so you can kind of visually see exactly what this plan is looking like. So we do have our goals and objectives and actions. Those are kind of shaded a little bit darker. And then it's the white lines that are the action steps. You'll see for this group in particular, we've identified owner and teams for, at the very least, the first objective, which was prioritized based on your information. And then also the due date. This team was able to get those due dates figured out. Some teams have started by identifying different things, as you'll see as we go through them. But this one is relating to encouraging, promoting thoughtful planning, diversity, and density in housing stock. So some items that have come up have been using county GIS technology to identify redevelopment sites and zones, things that meet maybe certain criteria, and making this available and user-friendly for developers, for our municipal partners, for residents, for anyone who might want to see what areas of the county we should be developing and based on your feedback. Revising existing housing policies and adopting new policies that are flexible, inviting, and open to attract diverse housing. So looking at maybe some of the funding incentives we do provide, some that are done elsewhere, reviewing our comprehensive plan and farmland preservation plans with an eye for just seeing what some of those plans are, not necessarily for changing anything. And writing summaries on some of these information, holding potentially another housing summit that talks about some innovative design. I know there's a company in Watertown called Cabin Tech that does basically manufacture panels that almost snap together. They can do them for relatively cheap for square footage. And so maybe looking at some ways that we can use some innovative design in housing to help bring that cost down and encourage people to move in. There's also some action steps we've taken around increasing attainable housing options at all price points, creating maybe an ad hoc working groups, marketing information for building sites, database to developers, considering some type of stable, dedicated funding source for housing, and also planning for the impacts of housing, which includes inventorying hospital bed capacity, looking at municipal sewer and infrastructure plans, broadband, things like that into GIS, and holding feedback sessions to determine what issues might be arising as our population grows. This one is very small, but as you can see, they also have identified leads for a number of these. This is the highly regarded quality of life. And we started going through on this one, resources that might be needed. For instance, we're looking at what communities are sending actual letters to residents on important issues, because we know we've had some issues getting information out through the local media. So we've identified potentially, mailing and postage costs, and looking at budgeted items that we have for that. Hosting quarterly informational sessions throughout the county, looking at, if we do have to pay for any room rental fees. So this group has gone about it a little bit differently, but again, still making progress forward. This is intentional economic growth. Another Great job by them so far, and they've actually started identifying key performance indicators, which include potentially a number of on-site visits that economic development will be doing on-site to businesses in the county, ways to increase exposure to existing education sessions that Thrive ED already puts on, and under perhaps like tailor attraction efforts to industries that align with our strengths. We're looking at action items like understanding site selection process specific for biotech companies. We identified biotech, agriculture, food and beverage manufacturing, and advanced manufacturing as kind of our 4 strengths. And so how do we understand those site selection needs and help partner those businesses with the resources in our county? Especially with this one, the last one, we've looked at additional funding mechanisms. I think Ben will probably talk about it during his part of the presentation on budgeting, but some of these strategic plan items are not going to be cheap. And so that just needs to be part of discussions, whether it's the 2024 budget, the 2025 budget, or budgets into the future, just understanding that there are some priorities that are identified in here that if we want to really make a meaningful impact, we may need to decide what an appropriate funding level is and also what a funding mechanism is, whether it's levy, whether it's other program fees or things like that. And finally, transformative government. This group has met, I think, the most. They've also gotten the farthest. It's a lot around the ways that we can have a workforce that is engaged, that is growing, that is professional. And so, again, a number of these kind of fall on human resources, but there are items like expanding wellness programs for staff, looking at ways to encourage professional development, hiring certain positions like risk managers or safety officers, offering first aid and CPR training. This is related to budgeting, maybe looking at some of the grants we apply for and seeing if there's ways that we can apply for additional grants. And then achieving a sustainable environmental energy future. There's a number of items that are brought forward to me by some county board supervisors that have made their way into here, as well as some of the stuff that we're doing with some energy efficiency grants we're pursuing through PSC. So one more transformative government slide, you can see that they've gone pretty far. They have, I think, 5 goals, and they've made it through all the first 3 and working on to their 4th. So next steps and considerations is we're going to be building out all those goals for implementation plans. We're going to be identifying all the resources needed and hopefully be getting those budgeted as we can. But we are going to need to gather direction continually from the county board on some policy issues and funding. I have to move my screen here saying, like perhaps some type of, do we have a dedicated strategic plan fund where we have money in it? And then the plans and the board and everyone make the decision how much from that plan or that dedicated strategic plan fund do we put into some of these initiatives. There are a number of things that have been identified that could receive some type of county funding, some type of grant funding, some type of outside funding from a different level of government that we might be pursuing. I'll read through this list very quickly. Things like translation and ADA accessibility, mailed communications, surveys and newsletters, park resource expansion, farmland preservation programs, incentive pay for housing policies, a dedicated housing funding stream, more funding in the Live Local Development Fund, some type of emergency housing and homelessness programming, a financial empowerment center for financial counseling, an incubator concept to help with targeted industries that might have high startup costs, for example, like distilleries or bakeries or places that have, pretty prohibitively high for some capital costs that we might be able to assist with. More funding in the Jefferson County Revolving Loan Fund, dedicated funding streams for economic development, risk management position, a fitness wellness area in the courthouse, and energy efficiency upgrades. We're also looking at some potential ordinance changes that have been suggested. For one example, looking at the way we treat accessory dwelling units, which has its pros and cons of looking at, one of which is related to rentals. If we were to open that up, it was identified that our wonderful level 3 public health office would then have to massively undergo a lot of licensing or review for that. So looking at some of these trade-offs and then continuing to get the guidance from the county board as to where we want to go. Again, every goal and objective change, if we want to go up to that level, will be done through the board. We're not going to change anything that you agreed to. We are just going to be doing our best to make sure that we get to that point. I am always open for feedback. Our team leads are always open for feedback if we think that the action steps are not necessarily leading there. I'll have a little bit more crystallization on these action steps in future updates. Like I said, we're still building the plan out. The goal is to assess at every meeting that we have, where are we, what worked, what didn't work, do we have to revise any updates, do we have to push any deadlines back, do we have to move any deadlines up? And then once we get to these first steps, like our action steps I mentioned are mainly about identification and inventorying. Once we get that done, our next steps will be, where do we go from there? And so I will be providing quarterly updates on where we're at to the board. We also need to figure out that public-facing dashboard. And I believe that is it. Are there any questions or any feedback on the strategic plan?
Thank you, Michael. Questions for Michael? Looking around the room, Mike, I don't see any hands up. So thank you very much for your presentation. Enjoy your time in DC.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, I did mention I was going to share really quickly what the Excel document looks like. So let me do that very quickly. So zoomed in a bit. This is where we're at with it's an Excel document that we keep. We also work through Microsoft Teams, but it's been updated. This is just a little bit more zoomed in version of what you saw during my presentation.
Thank you. Again, anybody think of any questions for Mike? Seeing none. Thank you again, Mike. Takes us to item C, budget amendment update. Mr. Waymire.
So I think many of you are aware, coming to March, we typically have a kind of a quasi budget amendment process that really deals with carryover requests and kind of shoring up things of year-end closeout of 2023 to previous fiscal year and how it relates. Looking ahead to March, though, our budget amendment recommendations will probably be more significant than that. And so I kind of gave an update to the Finance Committee of some recommendations we are looking at. And based on the feedback of the Finance Committee, we thought it was best to give the initial presentation this month. So the board had questions, comments, etc. You could reach out to the respective department heads, myself, or the Finance Committee. So it's not, here's March, and by the way, can you please vote on it? We want to make sure you had time to adjust some of these things. So typically, when we look at this, our main process is really look at the appropriation issues that we may have. We'll talk through that, who's carrying money over. But this year is going to really focus on about 6, 7 other items specifically. A lot of it's going to relate to some of our capital allocation funds. We're closing out our American Rescue Plan Act dollars and how that might allocate differently. I've kind of talked through that with you, the budget last year already. How we look at some of our capital project and equipment allocation. Market adjustments, specifically how it relates to being competitive for our salaries, that's making its way through HR, various other operational needs, and then obviously some recommendations potentially for the results of land proceeds from sale of a county property. Part of our goal of this is to kind of paint the picture at the 10,000 foot level, so everyone kind of understands the various conditions that we're looking at and various needs across the county in general. So here in 2023, in general, we've had some pretty favorable results that we'll briefly talk through. Just as kind of as a reminder, we kind of say, quote unquote, this was a planned loss. And I say it because we had saved up dollars to do certain things. As an example, we paid that debt off early of $2 million, which resulted in some tax reductions going into this fiscal year. We also, as you may recall, last year, we kind of had this funky little spreadsheet with our carryover process. It's really just allocated some working capital and some other dollars towards various projects and one-time program fees going forward. And so that was part of our application that we took forward. So that's part of the reason we were at. But there's a lot of other factors. And you heard Michael talk about the needs of just how do we look at the strategic plan and some priority-based budgeting. Very, very rough guess, right? When you look at all those things up there in that strategic plan, it's $45 million we're talking. Now, that's not 1 year. That's over a term of years. And it could be things that adjust those numbers from grants and other things that are out there. But in reality, trying to get this all done without prioritizing it, it's not an insignificant dollar amount to make these things happen. Obviously, we kind of talked briefly about capacity of the staff needs and trends and data of needs, and those change every day. As Blair said in his conversation, every day is a new adventure sometimes in terms of new challenges coming our way for various staff and how we accomplish the best things going forward. You're going to see briefly talk about market analysis. We are looking at ways that we have some positions that are 10% behind their comparative needs right now, and another group 5 to 10% range, and we'll make some recommendations, make year mid-year adjustments to a certain staff, but also look at changes for the future of our ranges going forward. Economic factors, I'll get to this in a little more detail with a chart, but really we're trying to monitor where things are going in 2024 and early trend signs, especially as it looks at sales tax and property tax. Like I said, and ARPA, that helped us do a lot of great things, helped us fund a lot of projects, but we're in a good spot to roll out of it, but just some things we need to accomplish. Miscellaneous capital needs, and then program costs going forward. And the final thing is just fiscal sustainability. One thing we've been talking to the finance committee about is how we look at our fund balance policy. Traditionally, it's often been like an X percentage of your budget amount for operations. And we're looking more and more of some best practices that you look at a risk analysis going forward of what you should really have. And there's a variety of factors on that. But this is to a level we'd almost have to bring an actuarial person in to make sure we can look at the numbers to ensure we have the right amount of money reserved going forward to the future. So on your left is typically what that resolution is going to look like. It's going to be a resolution authorizing budget amendments to offset fiscal year 2023 departmental deficits. We have 4 that we're anticipating at this point in time based on year-end closeouts. One is for the county board. That's not a bad thing. Main reason is as we put the budget together, we did not anticipate as many meetings for strategic plan. That primarily took place. And so it's just a little bit over, but it was really deal with extra meeting fees and dinner and things like that. Same thing with emergency management. We had some closeout on some flood mitigation properties that was not fully carried forward and just making some adjustments there. Fair Park, we've had some discussions about that already. Smaller numbers, but again, it'll be over the appropriation number. And the medical examiner, and what's really driving that right now is the number of autopsies that we've had to do over what was budgeted. We have increased for this current fiscal year number of autopsies that need to take place that we're projecting. And these are the departments that you will see next month that have requested official carryovers. And then on the left is really what the language will read on the agenda next month, authorizing year-end requirements to carry over budgets and officially amend the 2024 budget. So very early results. Mark and various fiscal teams are trying to finalize this. And I pop by Mark's office every so often. I'm trying to say, I think I know where we're at. He goes, I'm not ready to say fully where we're at. And we do a little dance, but we're getting there. But in general, department results. In general, our revenue are slightly above budgeted, which is a good thing. And in general, most of our departments, our expenditures are under budget. So good trends on both sides. Our investment and dividend incomes this year, you saw those interest rates go up. Most of our investments that we can make are tied to those interest rates. It was a significantly good year. And that's going to help us with a couple things we're going to show. With that being said, that's going to really be one-time dollars. We did increase our investment income for this current budget up to $1.5 million. We're just continuing to monitor where the trends of the interest rates go and the dividends that come back as we monitor that. But we will end above that number I just said for 2023. Sales tax. We're going to hit budget. We're fairly certain we're going to hit budget. But this chart on the right is really our sales tax. It really goes back to 2021. And I just kind of put it up here because you're starting to see some dips. You're starting to see some flattening in some years. And you kind of see this reduction from January. January is actually for November sales tax that took place. I bring this forward because this is not an anomaly just for Jefferson County. In essence, every county saw a reduction month over year, with the exception of 12 counties across the state. And there are smaller counties with small amount of money that went up. We just want to continue to monitor this because it's slowing down because you saw these aggressive rates during the inflationary impacts. But you start adding that in, it's a little concerning a little bit. We also, property tax, if you said in Finance Committee last month, there's two trends that kind of we're noticing. Number one, I think we had over, 50 properties on our tax foreclosure list to move forward. That's probably been one of the highest numbers in at least 5+ years. Some of them are very small, without a doubt, but just it's a trend. The other thing is our January uncollected property tax is up nearly 25%. So that's roughly $300,000. But again, we haven't seen that trend in a while. And so is that an emerging trend in terms of some of the economic conditions that are out there? So things that we want to be cognizant of when we look at the budget. So potential allocations that will be coming your way. On the far right, I put notes. Many of these are just conceptual needs that we weren't able to fund this past year. And in some cases, it may impact operations that we have to incorporate to future operational budgets. And as we prioritize, we'll look forward. First, we have a significant need for our copiers. We have at least 4 that need to be replaced. Those are roughly about $10,000 a piece. We also did not buy any sheriff's patrol vehicles this past year. We have roughly 6 vehicles in our fleet right now. We have over 175,000 miles on them. Right now, those are primary backup vehicles. We're going to continue to look at when does it make sense to buy those. Our windows typically for those, they open up for a week to 2 weeks, so we have to be prepared. So that might be a recommendation coming forward. The courthouse project, I'm going to get into a little more detail briefly here, but we're looking at needing additional dollars, about 1.5 to 2 million that we're trying to finalize. Program costs, and I'm mainly saying courts because there's a couple items working through the CJCC specifically right now. One is what's commonly known as our LIFT program. This was a driver's license restoration program that we did a trial basis this last year. We've had some pretty good results with it. It's a program with out of Dane County with attorneys who legally help people get their licenses back. We found that we had so many OARs or operating after revocation that were just clogging the system. The system said we had to find a better way. And the better way was find a way to get people to get their license the right way. And so they wouldn't continue to create a case backlog. But that's roughly a $50,000 a year program. The CJCC did recommend that we move forward with that. Attorney Thompson and a few others are working on revising or revisioning our SCRAM/remote monitoring. This is when someone is out on pre-trial for an OWI or operating while intoxicated. They are on a monitoring device. We're going to look at some best practices related to that and then a potentially indigent fee that goes with that going forward. And as Supervisor Morris will tell you, there's a whole bunch of good ideas at the CJCC level of how can we look at the system that might come forward, but we got to determine what is the data and the best cost, best program that fits the needs of Jefferson County with that all being said. And then the other thing we continue to monitor is our attorney cost with outside vendors as we continue to find attorneys to cover the needs of Jefferson County residents to get through the system. Michael briefly touched on this. We are in the process of getting a grant, and he's taking the lead on this, what's called a Federal Empowerment Center to really help with some counseling related housing and credit items. We're looking at a significant grant, but probably need some seed matching fund of up to $20,000 to $40,000 with the intention being we can fundraise the remainder or through grants. One thing you're going to start to see, I'm going to start tying some of these items to strategic objectives we go through, but not every item. So here's some of the project examples that we're going through that we've been talking with the Buildings and Grounds Committee about and the Finance Committee about related to the project. And some of these were basically outside the scope of the project, but they were discovered as we got into more things and strengthened various systems where the weaknesses came out. So one within our pod system of the jail, we have a tower. For those who have done tours, we're clients of the jail, right? The middle, it's our control. Underneath is a whole electrical system comes in, and as we've looked at how that was set up in the 90s, there's some safety concerns, quite frankly, related to it. And so that's being recommended that is rectified for the safety of primarily our staff, but both deputies and our maintenance staff. We also had a significant failure of one of our automatic transfer switches related to our backup generator power. We're on a temporary system right now, not an insignificant amount of money to get that fixed, roughly an $80,000 fix, give or take a little bit. We also have had a failure that was unplanned for our primarily up. So this is a big battery backup system for our dispatch and jail center. What's being spec'd will also create a redundancy system to protect against any failure to make sure those systems are operational. One of the other items that we're working through right now is our ventilation system in the jail, specifically our exhaust system for our shower areas. A lot of conversations about the designs that took place when it was put in place. But bottom line is we're not getting enough flow through there that's causing potential growth of mold and things like that. So it is an area that we feel, based on finding that we have to have that conversation. Then we're also working through some structural issues. We have a 50s edition with a 90s edition with a 60s edition. And you'll see some holes that look like a sledgehammer went through it. I gave Mark a tour so you could see it, so he knew I wasn't making all this up. But in some cases, you just have bricks exposed with no steel to hold them up. Other cases, we had steel actually cut through in the middle of holes without reinforcement. So our intention is we want to make sure that's fixed the right way before we cover it back up. And then some other just items that we're looking at, some sidewalk replacement that's overdue, and just some onerous costs that go with that. We'll have that final number for the March board meeting of what we're recommending. Then some operational items. As we mentioned, we're looking at market adjustments for employees across the board. We've done an updated analysis. I think for those on HR and finance know that this is a constant battle that counties and municipalities are continuing to update their salary structures because of the competitive nature. Based on the initial numbers, the full year for what we're looking at for the mid-year adjustment would be $265,000, but take that in half. I just put the $265,000 up there with a big asterisk because recognize when we take on these costs, that's a cost we're already incurring for 2025. And that's what we have to look at as we look for budgets in the future. With this too is Terry and her team are working with an employee group on various things related to how we work together and make things better here in Jefferson County. A couple ideas that float up is the idea of a referral bonus for bringing people on board, and also a bilingual policy of those who are certified bilingual. And we can give a little extra to help in that service and offset the needs for that. Michael kind of mentioned that we've talked about ideas for funding, and one idea came up is recently with the American Family Field bill. One of the things that took place with the Milwaukee County and City of Milwaukee is how they pay for their portion. Prior to that act being signed, there's an administrative fee of roughly 1.5% the state took back from counties for their portion of the sales tax to administer the program. That now is going to go to all the counties based on that bill that was passed. For us, that's approximately $85,000 to $100,000 is what we're estimating right now. The idea being is that's on top of what we have in budgeted for sales tax. That could be a dedicated funding source for economic development or even strategic marketing, as we're looking at things related to tourism right now with requests coming in. Some of the things you're going to quickly see potentially in the budget adjustment, we're looking at some fee adjustments specifically for medical examiners for cremation fees. Sheriff's departments have some service of processing fees we're looking at. And then the Fair Park Advisory Board are looking at some of their fees that were approved that might be recommended for adjustment to coming back to the county board. We're also looking for some staffing adjustments or position changes that we look at potentially authorizing in this budget amendment. And then finally, kind of quickly getting through, we also have the proceeds from the various sales that have been taken place, and we have some initial recommendations for consideration to mull over as we look ahead to the future. The first item is we're continuing to work at the old highway site, and we continue to work on the due diligence with the company that has a contract purchase to buy. Obviously, we continue to look at the environmental needs. And I think many of you are aware, the county, since the 30s, caused some of this damage. And so we're looking at how do we clean up what we need to do. And this doesn't matter, quite frankly, who the developer is. But right now, we have about $190,000 already reserved for some of the cleanup cost. We may need some more, and we're just going to look at some ideas of how that might look like the sales proceeds, et cetera, to make a recommendation. We also have the sale of county property, the county farmland, what else might go by. So obviously we have 3 potential sales. So the gross proceeds at this point is approximately $3.36 million. So we have the Nestle one that's been closed for $338,000, the Stadi for $21,000, and Project Dove, which is under contract for $3 million. And tonight we're officially able to say we have a purchase sales agreement with Kikkoman as being the purchase service provider for Project Dove. As of that amount, we've been looking at the incurred costs and some of the things we're obligated on the closing deals for this, roughly $150,000. We got to finalize that number. So that's everything from wetland studies, phase 1 environmentals, traffic studies, certified survey maps, some zoning items, which leads us with at least a net proceeds available of about $3.2 million. So here's quickly the initial recommendation of the allocation. As I mentioned before, we want to look at the fiscal sustainability of county and our fund balance policy. So reserving initially $1 million until we finalize what that looks like. Again, I tied it to a strategic goal. We anticipate it might be less than what is needed, but we want to make sure before we build into what that fund balance policy is, we have funds are available. If the policy says that we do not need these funds, then it comes back to the board for potential reallocation. Look at recommendations, $1 million into our housing program. That was a very significant objective of the housing program, our strategic plan, and continue the needs of housing. As Michael mentioned, we have a couple of these under the strategic plan, but $500,000 in general for strategic plan implementation. This would be part of the budget process going forward to show the focus points based on priority-based budgeting to move forward. $500,000 towards the farmland preservation / PACE program, and to look at those programs going forward. This is based on some historical allocations, based on some future grant opportunities, but also recognize that there might be opportunities for additional funds that the board deems to be allocated as program based on use and absorption of these initial funds. And then finally, reserving $200,000 for the parks maintenance facility. With Project Dove and the work being done out there, there's going to be some reallocation of their parking lot and just making sure we have funds reserved to help work on those issues. And then finally, ARPA reallocation. We talked about this already as part of the proposal for budget message last year. We just want to officially move it forward with the board's approval. In essence, what we'd be looking at is reallocating funds from broadband to two main projects. One is County Highway D and the bridge project, and basically use some funds to carry that forward. And same with the interurban trail phase 3. Tonight, you're going to look at the bids that came in for the bridge, which were, we got some very, very favorable bridge costs with construction for the actual trail being done in 2025. And so we just have a way that we pay for some things now with ARPA and reserve money for next year, so we have the matches taken care of without taking from other operational capital budget needs. And this kind of re-explains what we talked about last budget season. Finally, we anticipate some more updates on the opioid settlement. We did begin the process with the gap analysis, demand analysis with Rock and Walworth County that you previously approved. Staff is doing some additional meetings next week to talk about these allocations. Part of the pause of this not fully moving forward yet is a second settlement literally just got finalized across the country last week. I think we approved, the board approved this April, May, something like that last year. So up to this point, we haven't had the full distribution amount, what that looks like. So we anticipate more information so we can build the budget to come back to the board with some additional recommendations for how to use the opioid settlement funds. So quickly, next steps. Finance Committee is going to fully talk about what should be included in the budget amendment or what maybe should not be in the budget amendment. We'll have some of the final closeout costs for the year and how we might pay for some of these ideas we just presented. Update on the opioid funding metrics, other capital fund needs. And then finally, we'll have a full amendment to bring to the county board in March. So that is all I have, Mr. Chair. Bankruptcy. That's all I have unless there's any questions, Mr. Chair. I know that's a lot quickly.
Any questions for Mr. Waymeyer? Supervisor Morris.
Will you make that PowerPoint available somehow?
We'll email to the board.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to annual reports. Number 10, County Board Meeting Fee Report. That is within your packet. So you have that available to you, which takes us to committee reports, resolutions, and ordinances. Item 11, Executive Committee. Mr. Winnicky.
Yeah, everyone should have in their packets tonight the county board rules, a 2-page document. Basically, this comes down to essentially 2 sections. The first section revolves around the sale of the county home property and put into a farm preservation PACE program funding that was submitted to be part of the county board rules. But while looking at it, we concluded that it really shouldn't be in the county board rules, but should be in an ordinance or resolution, go through finance, go through the Land and Water Conservation Committee, and then back to executive and get a good thorough look. So that was voted by executive and will not be coming back in March. It'll be coming back when it's ready after it goes through those committees. The other section are a list of 4 different votes that the executive committee would like the input of the county board as a whole. And the rationale for that is partially because, for example, last month there was a lot of discussion on many of these topics. And we want to make sure the view of the executive committee largely syncs up with the will of the county board. But the other important reason to do that is that March is sort of a hard deadline. We have to have the county board rules in place in March because that'll be our last meeting of this existing board. And then the new board will then vote again on those topics. So it's important to note that any vote we make tonight would not be binding to anyone. In theory, you could change your mind next month if you felt you had a strong need to. But it will help to give us a sense of the thinking of the county board. So with that, I would move to suspend the rules to allow for an informal straw polling of the county board of supervisors on the 4 issues in the packet.
We have a second from Supervisor Morris. Anybody, any discussion on that motion? It's not debatable, so I forgot about this. There's no debate on that motion. All in favor of suspending the rules, say aye. 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 Opposed? Is that I don't think so. I think it's just a buzz. All right, the rules are suspended. Mr. Winke, you want to lead us on?
Okay, the first question is, do you support including the following language to the county board rules? Limit on simultaneous positions. Except when necessary on a temporary basis, supervisors may serve as chair of only 2 of the 13 standing committees at a time. Serving as chair of 2 standing committees does not preclude a supervisor for standing for election for chair of a 3rd standing committee. However, that if that supervisor is elected chair of the 3rd committee, he or she must resign the chairmanship of one of the prior committees before that committee's next meeting.
Any discussion? Do people understand what this means? So again, this is not a binding thing, but we would ask for your feelings on this, and then we'll vote so we get kind of a feeling from the executive committee what to bring back. Mr. Backlund.
Thank you. There was some questions. This is just, there's certain meetings that there were some that were exempt. Is that correct?
Yes, commissions and what do we call them? Commissions and boards were exempt.
Okay, just so you know, you could be a chairman of more than 3, just not of this group. That's
those standing committee ones.
Correct.
Yeah. Any other feelings concerning this?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I guess I'm curious if anybody could speak to what the goal is with this.
Mr. Christensen, you brought this forward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I originally brought this idea forward as a proposal based on conversation I had some months ago with Chairman Nass, where he was recounting back in the old days. There was a supervisor that was chair of 4 or 5 different committees. And I felt that was just too much control or thought process of one person controlling that many. So my original proposal was for limiting it to 1 chair of the standing committees. When I took a look at back some of the committees, I could see that that could cause some troubles. For instance, zoning committee, several of the members are already chairs of other members. So if this rule was limited to 1, it would have meant that the only person on that committee, on the zoning committee, that would be available for chair would be Supervisor Richardson. And if she turned it down, that would make trouble. So I don't expect that she causes much trouble, but that could be. So in discussions with Ben and Steve and the executive committee, it was changed to 2. At this time, there are no there would be no committees or no supervisors that would be affected by this change. And so limiting it to 2, but not beyond that, I think, like I say, opens up more opportunities for a diverse thought process at the top of these committees, and that's my goal. Thank you.
Other discussion? Supervisor Winnicke.
Yeah, I just neglected when I read it to mention that the executive committee did vote to be in support of this provision at the last meeting.
Again, this is a straw poll, but all in favor of this this board rule change, say aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed? One opposed. Okay. So these, again, will be coming back to the next meeting. Okay, next one.
Okay, the second one, number 2, do you support including the following language in the county board rules? Term limit. No supervisor shall be eligible to be nominated, elected, or to serve as the chair of a committee if that person has previously held that same position on the same committee for 3 or more full consecutive terms, unless one full term or more has elapsed since the person last held such position. Service prior to the 2024-2026 terms shall not count in determining the length of service. The executive committee did not take any action on this provision at the last meeting.
Questions, discussion? I'm surprised I'm not hearing from you, Mr. Morris, because I got a nice email from you.
I don't know about other committees. I can only talk about what I've served on. And it just seems like a solution in search of a problem to me. Term limits on a federal level are for everybody in Congress or everybody in the Senate. It's not about whether or not you're head of a committee or you play some other role. So I don't see anything wrong with term limits in Congress. And a lot of congressmen and senators are limiting themselves. But I understand the need for, development overall, and I think that's a very good thing. But I think that has to come from the ground up, not by board rules down myself. But again, I can't speak to other committees, so there may be other things happening on other committees with chairs that I don't know about, so I'll confess my ignorance at that point.
Supervisor Backlund.
I guess I'm opposed for one thing. If you're in the middle of a term and there's something going on in that committee and you want the chair there for continuity, because of this, they could be not chair. And granted, they maybe could still be on the committee, but I could see where there could be a scenario where something's going on and they're dealing with the chairman with whatever department head or whatever. And then now you lose that continuity, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Other questions and discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to chime in again. I fully agree with Supervisor Morris's take on this. It does feel like a solution looking for a problem. I do very much echo the idea that, federal congressional term limits, this is apples and hand grenades. It's not, they're the same words, but they don't apply here. And we're talking about some very talented, intelligent, experienced people that are frankly not getting rich doing this work, heading up these committees. And I very much oppose the idea of arbitrarily pulling people out of these positions that have been effective in their work. And I'll also add that for all the committees I've been on, and only these last few years I've been around here, I have yet to see any of them run anything resembling poorly. So, yeah, very much echo Supervisor Morris's sentiments.
I believe Mr. Kennard had his hand up first, then Kurt. Mr. Kennard.
Yes, I would be opposed to this too. I think every term or 2 years, if somebody's not doing their job on a committee, at that point, the committee can select a different chair. It's just how it works, I guess. I don't see why you would limit, if somebody's, I guess, what do you want to say, passionate about certain things, I guess, if somebody wasn't doing the work of the committee or something, then you got an opportunity to replace them.
Supervisor Lund.
Could we have a similar explanation of the rationale or goal from this rule, this proposed rule?
I don't recall who brought it forward. Supervisor Martin. Supervisor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things that came to mind when thinking about this is that by right now, I don't know if everybody realizes, but we have several, well, not several, at least 3 committees where people have chaired for 10 to 12 years. And some of the newer people may not be aware of that. That's a pretty long time. By changing things off, it brings some different ideas. It lets people have different experiences when they're on the county board. It brings in, like I said, new ideas, diverse opinions, different experiences, which is what Supervisor Christensen was talking about as well with regards to chairing committees. It doesn't prevent anyone from serving a full term as a chair, which I think there's some confusion. It would be just that after 3, then there's a break. And then that current committee chair could still be on the committee and provide historical information if called upon. And then if the person who has been chairing for that particular term is voted off the island next time or whatever, then the person who had previously been the chair could come back in. So that was the thought. And I understand, we're not talking about terms for Congress and stuff. We're talking about just variety of opinions, variety of experiences, type of thing for our county board. Thank you.
Other questions, discussion? Supervisor Brogler.
I would like to agree with Supervisor Backlund. He used the word continuity. I think the word I would use is experience. That's really been invaluable. I just jotted down, I think I've served on like 5 or 6 different committees. And when you come in new, there's a major learning curve. And it takes a term or 2. But then I also look at the people that have led those and their little idiosyncrasies on each one of these committees that they bring with them with their experience that makes a difference. And the other thing I noted, I don't remember there ever being any contests for these positions. There was a nomination for chairman, nomination for chairman, and then it was pretty much the chairman. And it's the same thing followed through back. We had secretary as vice chairman. So I would be against this. I think the way we're operating is working fine.
Anyone else? Seeing none, again, this is a straw poll vote. All in favor of the term limits, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Opposed?
No.
And it sounds like about 2/3, 1/3 here, so I can guess it at that. Okay. Item 3.
A supervisor has proposed amending the county board rules to require audio and/or video recording of committee meetings. Prior to staff expending time and resources researching the logistics and legal retention requirements of this proposal, please answer the following. A, do you support an amendment to the county board rules which requires committee meetings to be audio and/or video recorded? B, if audio and/or video recording is required, should recordings be limited to finance and executive committees at this time? The executive committee did not take any action on this matter at its last meeting.
Again, we're looking for board guidance on this, to whether to keep bringing this forward or not. So let's talk about item A first. Do you support an amendment to the county board rules which requires committee meetings to be audio or video recorded? Mr. Backlund.
I just got a question. Then would these be like available on YouTube like we do our others, or are they for an archival? I guess there's not enough information for me to make a. I don't understand what the purpose is. If we're going to videotape them and then they're going to be archived, I don't know what the point is, and that's a lot of work. And just trying to do all that, and where are you going to store it? And I guess I'd like a little more information.
Mr. Waymark.
So I think there's a variety of products that are out there based on the intention of the board, how they would like to handle it. We have discussed, you do put these on YouTube as an example. In some cases, there's products out there for agenda building software platforms, for lack of a better term, that you can almost link to a video. In some cases, you can get to the point that if you want to look at agenda topic 5, it'll tell you exactly on the film where it's at. So it really depends on the desire of the board in terms of the concept. And then we'd have, as staff, we'd have to look at all the things from how to record, what platform we're going to use that's the most beneficial to reach those outcomes. We will have to look at retention protocol. Right now, our gut would say it's either going to be looking at our video program we have for like security cameras 121 days, or it's the default 7 years, so it's something else different. We'd have to go through a process with our retention schedule policy to change that as well. So that's part of the reason why this was brought forward, saying in concept, is this something that we should even explore? If in concept the answer is yes, then I will have direct staff to begin looking at ideas to bring forward with various tools, because there's a lot out there, right? We can simply do YouTube like we do for the board meetings, or it might have to be more sophisticated based on a number of things that we'd have to manage, quite frankly.
Can I follow up?
We'll have to come back to you by board rules. Mr. Christensen.
Thank you. My concern about this particular proposal is the amount of storage space that would be required could be a lot. And the second is the complexity of the legal issues that might arise for having to provide these documents or these recordings to the public when it's requested. So I think it could snowball into a kind of a complex tar baby the way it is. Thank you.
I saw a hand over here, and then I know 2 people on Zoom. Everybody gets to go, then you can go again. All right, who's on? Mr. Morris?
I don't know what other committees do, okay? For law enforcement and emergency management, every time we meet, whoever is taking the minutes has an MP3 recorder. And all of our minutes, all of our meeting is actually recorded. From that recording, the meeting minutes are produced. So I don't know what happens to that recording. I'm assuming it gets deleted. Also, anytime we have a Zoom meeting, it doesn't take much to just simply hit record. And that meeting is also likewise recorded. And I'm assuming that recording is also audio and visual. I'm not making an argument either way, because I honestly don't know how I'm going to vote on this one. But I'm just letting you know, letting everybody know. I don't know what other committees might use the MP3 recorder, but there are recorded messages. So it sounds like we're looking to codify what to do with those audio and or video recordings that I refer to.
Supervisor Turville Heights.
Thank you. I would say that it's not a bad idea to record, if not all of the meetings, at least some of the more significant meetings that have something to do with that, like finance or executive committee. I know that's another question that's on here. I've had to record off Zoom numerous times in my work in a variety of different ways. It is not that hard. It doesn't take up all that much space in reality. And when it comes to how long you keep it, that, you know, that's just a decision to be made. But if you're not, the vast majority of systems allow you to keep it for a fairly long time. Zoom automates so much of that. There's other ways to keep those recordings. What it does is it makes it available for the public in an easily accessible manner, makes it available for other people who are members of the committee that might have to miss, members of the board that might have to miss, or anybody who wants to double check how something actually happened that they may have misconstrued. I don't think it's a bad thing to be doing. And a lot of other locales have done this, other organizations that do meetings like that. Thank you.
And I think Supervisor Zarling, you had your hand up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I mean, here we are in February 2024. I'm not saying this is in perpetuity, but for right now, I'm opposed to this. Again, I'm hesitating to really see what the goal is here. Even putting aside any restrictions or requirements, burdens, can and should are two different words. Yeah, we can do this. Should we do this? I don't. I feel that there are ample opportunities in terms of transparency for anybody to participate in any of our committees, to go to board meetings, to ask questions, et cetera, et cetera. I just feel that at this time, anyway, it puts a completely unnecessary burden on several scores. Never mind the potential splitting of hairs. Never mind the hardware itself. If you've ever participated in Zoom meetings, somebody at the end of the table is hard to hear. I mean, this is again a solution looking for a problem in my estimation, and I would oppose this at this time.
Okay, I have Supervisor Backlund and Supervisor Martin.
I guess my concern is I don't think YouTube is a good place to archive personally as a government entity. I'm just worried about costs. I know I don't know how we're doing it all now, but there is a certain level, and if someone requests a video archive, unless we're saying we only need it for 90 days or whatever. And you're right, I heard someone storage costs and stuff, and I know storage is fairly cheap, but you start putting terabytes of data out there and then it gets expensive. And then what happens if it's 7 years and for some reason we have an issue where maybe data becomes lost? I'm just running through things, and I don't think it's a bad idea. I just, implementing it, I don't want a lot of people to spend a lot of valuable man hours, whether it's MIS or whatever, trying to get this up and running. I guess that's kind of my concern.
Supervisor Martin. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regularly, I get requests and questions from constituents, will that meeting be recorded? I cannot attend. I get that almost every month. So that was one of the, precipitating factors to bring this up. What some counties do is they link the recording to the agenda. They keep it for 30 days. That's their policy. And their policy says that the official meeting minutes are the written minutes, so that people have 30 days after a meeting to view it if they so choose. So it's not really an arduous process. I don't think it would require a lot of staff time or a lot of storage. And just to mention about, we currently have our county board meetings on YouTube. I don't know if everybody realizes it. So thank you.
Anyone else? Supervisor Kennard.
Any idea of cost? No, not at this time.
It depends on what we bring forward, I imagine, and how long you want to store it. Is there anything else you want to add?
So think about 2020, right? When all of a sudden we said, let's go remote, right? And we just found the pieces of equipment to make it work. by the end of 2020, we had much more, and now, right, much more sophisticated equipment to run because there's an expectation. So the gamut is unknown, right? Simply like as we said right now, you use this room right now, we press record in Zoom, we probably can put it up on YouTube pretty simply, right? But it goes back to, is that the platform everyone wants to use? The example is like Supervisor Martin said, do we tie it to agendas? All that has to be considered, but that we owe you that research back if you ask us to go in this direction and give you options.
Anyone else there? Yeah. Carl. Okay, we come back to Supervisor Zarling.
Yeah, guys and gals, just two quick things. The first thing, there are going to be, I mean, having been a geek in the past, a techie, working in software teams, we are not just talking about YouTube and storing a few terabytes and stuff like this. This would be, for it to be really functional, really usable, really searchable, manageable, data-based. This is no small undertaking, guys, for it to really be worth anything. And with all respect to supervisors speaking on people that couldn't attend a meeting or can't attend a meeting, et cetera, et cetera. And my second point is really about unintended consequences. And I'm just going to say it. I mean, the fact is, we all go to great lengths to be thorough, committed in all of our committees and all of our meetings. We have a lot of material we cover. There's a lot of expertise and knowledge involved. And then to have certain constituents, which I feel for them, that they're unable to, for whatever reasons, be able to attend a meeting or have someone attend on their behalf or anything like that. And that, that this is a major loss on their part to have missed a meeting. The fact is, I think after the fact to pour through recordings and split hairs over what somebody did or didn't say appropriately, guys, I don't see a lot of upside to this, at least at this moment in 2024. That's what I think.
Supervisor Brogdon and Supervisor Martin.
Is it possible to find out if any other supervisors have had requests from their constituency for recordings?
We could have a show of hands. How many have had constituents ask for recordings of meetings?
I could make a comment on that.
Okay. I see 4.
Anybody
Mr.
on
Smith,
Zoom?
would you? Mr. Smith, you haven't spoken yet, so you're up for.
With the question he just asked, it's a great question because part of it is how involved you are in doing your job. Where I personally have not reached out to my constituents to really see or care what they think about what goes on here. Nobody's contacted me about it, and that's part of why I really shouldn't be on this board. That, unless you made an effort at keeping in contact with your constituents and posting things online like Supervisor Martin has done, doing her job, you're not going to get the feedback that she's getting from her constituents. Thank you.
Supervisor Martin, you had your hand up next. And that would be your third time speaking on the subject. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the focus groups, people were making those comments about not being able to attend meetings because of their work schedules and how they wanted to learn more about county government, but they couldn't. So this does fall in the realm of education for ourselves, as when we come onto the board, it gives an opportunity to learn more, educate constituents, educate potential future board members. It falls into transformative government. Thank you.
Meg, you're up again.
Thank you. I just wanted to note that I have had people ask me about whether the meetings are recorded, whether they could witness one. A couple of the ones that they had talked about were some of the ones that we have recorded, such as the joint meeting. We also had people who asked about the groundwater study results. and have gone and looked for them. I've sent that link out several times. So I do think that there are people out there that are not necessarily always making themselves known. I know an awful lot of people who have absolutely no idea what we do, that it wouldn't at all be harmful to have those people given the opportunity to see how the process works, if nothing else, to remove some of the concerns they might have that things are happening in the dark. I don't think that that's what happens here. I just think that from the perspective that I come from in communications, I would always rather shine a light on things.
Anyone else? Supervisor Falker.
Yeah, at this point, I see no reason for this board to go down this rabbit hole. I see no reason behind it.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Again, this is a straw poll for just item A. Do you support an amendment to the county board rules which requires committee meetings to be audio, video recorded? If you don't, we probably don't move on to the next one. If you do, then we'll have a discussion on this, on item B. All in favor of supporting an amendment to the county board rules which requires meetings to be audio or video recorded, say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
No.
Can we do that? I can't tell. Sounds pretty even. I could just put 50-50 on a sheet too. Secondly, I'll just put down on my sheet 50-50 and we'll bring it forward.
No, I'm opposed to that. I would request a.
Okay, we have a request for roll call, so now that it's official, okay.
Supervisor Jones? I'm sorry, you're muted. Supervisor Richardson?
No.
No. Supervisor Price?
Yes.
Supervisor Zarling?
No.
Supervisor Brockler? Supervisor Herbst?
No.
Supervisor Morris?
No.
Supervisor Winnicky? Supervisor Degner?
No.
Supervisor Gross? Supervisor Smith?
Yes.
Supervisor Martin?
Yes.
Supervisor Lund?
Yes.
Supervisor Nass?
No.
Supervisor Turville Heights?
Yes.
Supervisor Coots?
No.
Supervisor White?
No.
Supervisor Drana?
No.
Supervisor Backlund?
No.
Supervisor Kennard?
No.
Supervisor Paulson?
No.
Supervisor Lindell?
No.
Supervisor Felker?
No.
Supervisor Fitzgerald?
No.
Supervisor Callan?
Yes.
Supervisor Gulig?
Yes.
Supervisor Roberts?
No.
Supervisor Christensen?
No.
We have 7 yes and 21 no.
So even with that vote and saying not doing all the meetings, is there any feeling for just doing finance and executive committee recordings? Any discussion on that? Again, nothing of this is binding at this point because we'll finally vote on it next week or next month. So any discussion made on limiting to those two? Mr. Smith?
You know, that's part of what I was thinking was not to record all the meetings and get so involved in this, but at the same time, in meetings like the executive committee or finance, hold them for a month or something, just so if somebody missed something and they wanted to do it, at least make it available or making an effort at keeping people informed.
Any other discussion on that item, item B under 3B?
My vote was because I would like to see it be the executive and finance committee, not necessarily every single committee. But I feel that in order to have that discussion about the second item B, we needed to vote on item A.
Yeah. Any other discussion on those? On that? Supervisor Richardson.
My question would be, would there be a time-sensitive component to this? Because it's kind of a replacement for like an immediate meeting minutes. So in that case, if you're posting this for the next 30 days, how is that going to replace meeting minutes? Not necessarily in the long term, but in the short term. I could see that being helpful, but otherwise we have meeting minutes, and that's a function of meeting minutes.
You have opinion on that, counsel?
So your meeting minutes will always be the official record.
Okay.
Other questions, discussion?
Supervisor Jones.
Supervisor Jones. You see you waving there. Huh?
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Supervisor Jones. We cannot hear you.
Hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Sorry about that. Thank you. I've been staying quiet because I'm chairman of a couple committees, and this concerns the finance committee. I got two concerns. First would be cost. At this time, we have a different opinion of what the cost would be, and if you heard from the presentation of Mr. Lucky and Mr. Waymeyer, we got a lot of issues already on our agenda. And second of all, I don't know, I'm not very tech savvy. I don't know the difference between what we're doing now with Zoom and what's being proposed. Can anyone answer that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a little bit of a shot at it.
Supervisor Darling.
I mean, Zoom is live, and it's not just as simple as live versus recording. A recording is recording, sure, and it's kilobytes and megabytes and ultimately terabytes of storage, lots of storage, more and more storage. But some of the hidden costs to do with this are, what do you do with it once you have it? It's one thing just to have, my goodness, this many hours of content hanging around on servers. Are we going to host our own servers? Is MIS going to now be a server farm? Are we going to hire a server farm somewhere in, maybe Nashville, Tennessee? Who's going to be our, we're going to have rack space there. We're going to have maybe 10 Linux boxes that are all going to run content for us, so anybody could search. There is way, way more to this, guys, than just your hard drive on your PC. And I think the point made by the supervisor about minutes is really relevant here. We have plenty of opportunity for people to find out what's going on. And the idea of us incurring, to Supervisor Jones's point as well, the idea of incurring this kind of cost management, et cetera, for what to me very much feels like a small opportunity for good to come of it relative to the system we have right now. I do not support this either.
Any other discussion? Mr. Morris.
For the Corp Council, so as you said, the meeting minutes written are the official record. So if someone made a request, we would want to say, well, you can have the meeting minutes, but since the recording isn't the official record.
Well, once we if the county board were to adopt a requirement that these be recorded, they would become public records that we would have to store and we would have to produce if requested.
I can't imagine us not being able or being somehow protect ourselves from making these open. The whole idea of recording them is transparency, so
Yes,
It would
they will be an
available.
open record.
Right. Right. So then my last question is, are there MP3s of finance and executive committee?
No, there's not. I would say yours is probably one of the few committees that has utilized that for purposes of just developing the minutes. I think the other committee that routinely use a recording device is the Planning and Zoning Committee for twofold. One is in the environment of a public hearing for purposes of making a record if need be for future potential needs. The second is they use it on their site visits as well, just to record as they're driving around what's going on going forward, just because they're driving around versus having a meeting at a courthouse. I think there's one or two other committee meetings. Sometimes if people have a recording device, but specifically for the purpose of drafting minutes, and that can be, and those are deleted then. With the exception of the planning and zoning public hearing.
Supervisor Backlund, you're next, and then we can come back.
I believe it's my third. This is more corp counsel, since we brought up official, unofficial, but they're both going to be records. What if there's a conflict between the two? How do we reconcile that? And it could be something said that was misinterpreted or could have been misinterpreted, but yet in the minutes it's that. That is a huge thing for me, because then it kind of opens us up a little bit that, okay, what is the official? Because you're going to have, they're both official records.
So by statute, the minutes that you approve will be the official record of what transpired as far as business. Is there a potential for there to be discrepancies? Certainly. Then it would be incumbent upon the committee to make a motion to amend their minutes if necessary.
Supervisor Morris.
Just as a reminder, within the last month, we had a public information request about all of our emails. So all our emails are out there for public information. So again, that's just a way in which we are trying to be transparent.
Supervisor Martin.
I need to say something. When I brought this up previously, I was under the understanding there was going to be some general research into costs. And I mentioned one of the counties that's doing this. Certainly there could have been conferring with that county to see how they deal with open records requests, how they do that. And so we don't have any of that information. This came to the board and it's causing confusion. So that's a little bit disturbing to me because that was brought up a while back. So I need to say that. Thank you.
Supervisor Gulick.
Without any, since we've suspended the rules and we're kind of freewheeling the discussion, I'm wondering if a middle ground to this wouldn't be not dissimilar than an ADA request that says, in essence, the meeting will be recorded upon request. There's some suspicions or intimations that there aren't very many requests for these recordings. Therefore, perhaps it's not a good idea to record everything and then incur the billions and billions of dollars to store this on servers in Zimbabwe or wherever. But that if we just record upon request in a way not dissimilar, if somebody makes an American with Disabilities Act request for accommodations at a meeting, that the county must do its due diligence to accommodate. I don't see this as any different from that. That's my suggestion. There's no real way to formulate an amendment to this in any way, but just to say that's a possibility. Maybe this is, if my colleague is getting a couple of requests a year and I get a request a year, maybe we're talking about half a dozen meetings. That's it. Thank you.
Anybody else? So on item B, 3B here, should we record audio and video recording required should be limited to Finance and Executive Committee at this time? That's the question out on the floor here. Then a straw poll. You'll still have a chance to vote and discuss this again next week or next month. All in favor, say aye.
Yes.
Oh,
Aye.
requesting a roll call. Mr. Backlund requests a roll call.
Supervisor Jones?
No.
Supervisor Richardson?
No.
Supervisor Price?
No.
Supervisor Zarling?
No.
Supervisor Brockler?
No.
Supervisor Herbst?
No.
Supervisor Morris?
No.
Supervisor Winnicky?
No.
Supervisor Degner?
No.
Supervisor Gross?
No.
Supervisor Smith?
Yes.
Supervisor Martin?
Yes.
Supervisor Lund?
Yes.
Supervisor Nass?
No.
Supervisor Turville Heights?
Yes.
Supervisor Coots?
No.
Supervisor White?
No.
Supervisor Drana?
You can't hear him.
I think you're muted. No? Okay, thank you. Supervisor Backlund?
No.
Supervisor Kennard?
No.
Supervisor Paulson?
No.
Supervisor Lindell?
No.
Supervisor Falker?
No.
Supervisor Fitzgerald?
No.
Supervisor Callan?
No.
Supervisor Gulig?
Yes.
Supervisor Roberts?
No.
Supervisor Christensen?
No.
I think she tallies.
Have 5 yes and 23 no.
So for these items, at least the exec committee knows kind of where the board's leaning. And I made note of the suggestion about the ADA that might, on request, that's something we can discuss on the executive committee. All right.
We've got one more.
Item 4.
Item 4, generally matters come before the county board following a recommendation from one or more of the various committees. The current rules contain an alternate procedure which allows 5 supervisors to sponsor action. However, the logistics of that process are unclear. The executive committee recommends clarifying an alternative procedure for placing matters on committee and county board agendas. Item A, do you support adding a provision that allows a group of 5 county board supervisors to refer an item to the county board chair for committee assignment if the respective committee chair is unwilling to place the item on the committee's agenda? B, do you support adding a provision that allows a group of 10 county board supervisors to co-sponsor action to bring it before the county board if the relevant committee takes no action or takes adverse action on the matter?
Supervisor Brogler.
Somebody just explained to me what it's in the county board minutes. It says they can do 5 supervisors sponsor the action. What's the difference to A?
Well, one of the things that says if there is action, if a committee denies it, the action's been taken. So can the 5-member committee still bring it forward? I think that's what
All right, okay, thank you.
if I recall from our meeting.
Yes.
Supervisor Backlund.
I believe the other intent was to go through the committees first and not just gather a bunch of people before the board, give that working group action to solve that problem, if you will, and if they can't, then it goes to the board.
And that has been what traditionally we've done by board rules, is people can bring a resolution forward, 5, 10 can, and then it's assigned to a committee. The point here being, if a committee chairman buries it or no action's taken, is there an action that these board members can do to bring it to the floor? That's basically what this is. And should that, what level do you want here? 5 or 10? Supervisor Paulson.
Yeah, we had quite a discussion about this, and 10, I'll support 10.
That's a third of the board. Mr. Supervisor Morris.
Just for clarification, we're not supposed to discuss things in like larger than groups of 3, right?
No, we can do.
Well,
I'm right there, right? We're not supposed to discuss things larger than groups of 3.
If all of those people are on the same committee, then you could have a,
I mean, I could have been having meetings with all these people and they weren't on my committee.
right. I mean, not all of them, but yes.
At the same time.
10 wouldn't be a quorum.
Like if I send an email, I usually only address it to one person. Other than, hi, how you doing? How was your burger last night? So 10 people can get together, and as long as they're not all in the same committee, it just,
Good point.
it's like we have ethics violations except we don't. That's what it seems like.
We didn't think about that as much when we were talking about this in the board. Mr. Smith?
Good idea.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought of that exact question. We've got rules that we can't have conversations in larger groups, but yet are we supposed to sit and talk to people individually? That this morning I participated in an online auction for a piece of public property that was 3 acres zoned public recreation. It was appraised at 28,000. I quit bidding at 42 and it sold for 49. We just sold 3 acres on County 26 that had 3 times more people driving by it all the time. Supervisor Martin made a comment that we need to come up with some kind of policy. Now, as you try to organize this or try to get this on the agenda, do you have to talk to 5 people? Do you have to talk to 10 people? What do you want to do? Something I tried to do and I would like to see is at every board meeting have a time on the agenda for people to ask questions or to make comments or to do something on county business related. That is just part of every agenda, and you don't have to go around and, get 5 people together or 10 people together. And another example would be at a meeting that we had at the highway shop. Somebody commented there was an incident at the county fair that they didn't mention what it was, but I would have been interested to at least know and have them tell 2 or 3 minutes of what had happened. I missed the meeting, so I wasn't informed, but to be part of doing your job is to talk about county business on county time, and that should be done at this meeting, and to think that it has to be done in public comment and you're limited to 3 minutes and you can't ask questions, I just think that's a very inefficient way to do your job. Thank you.
Just an FYI, you can call any supervisor you want anytime and ask a question. It's on a committee. You don't need to have it in a public forum. Supervisor Fitzgerald.
I guess I just want clarification. You said we were sort of debating whether it should be 5 or 10, but question A actually is, if I'm correct, you would need 5 people if the committee chair doesn't even put it on the committee agenda. 5 people could force it to be on a committee agenda.
Yes,
But
yes.
10 people is what it would take if it was on a committee agenda, but either they don't do anything or they vote it down and you still want it to come to the county board. Correct? So
Correct.
there's two
There's two-
different
yeah.
levels of what we're asking
Yeah, none of which are a quorum problem.
there.
Maybe.
Well,
10, but
10 would be harder because you'd need to find people that weren't on your,
there'd be 10. I could see this, that a minority of a committee, 2 people, a 5-person committee, would still want to bring this forward to the county board. They could go out and get people that are not on their committee to sign on to bring it to the board if they felt strong enough about it.
I just don't see how that's.
Supervisor Backlund.
So the quorum comes into issue. If they're not on that committee, it's not a quorum. And the other thing is I can send an email out to everybody in here saying, please contact me. What becomes the issue was when people hit reply all. That's where the walking quorum comes. But I can send out a blanket email to everybody saying, hey, what's your thoughts on this? But please respond to me one by one. I think that's where people are starting to miss some of these things. But the whole key is 5 to get on a committee note. And again, just because I'm in committee members with Roger, and if we're talking about something in parks, you know, people on our committee can say, hey, we got this issue with the parks. That's not a walking quorum because we're not on that committee. And I think that's the important thing is the quorum becomes in, I think, when you're talking about your specific, and I'll leave that up to our corp counsel, but that's how I kind of interpreted that.
Supervisor Winnicky.
I'm going to stand here and risk being exposed as terribly naive. But what I'm questioning is if there's an attempt to put something on a committee, at a committee level, any level, and it's voted down or the chair chooses not to bring it to the committee, what is there that you can be in violation of public meetings for? There's no agenda item before anything, correct? If we all vote for something, we're free to talk about that vote after it occurred, aren't we? I just don't understand where the violation comes in when there's nothing before the county any longer, because there isn't. And then if a few supervisors wanted to say, I really want to put that on the committee, bring it to the committee level, then it would become something that would be actionable, right? I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm confused.
Supervisor Paulson.
I just muddy this further. I don't know.
Supervisor Paulson.
Corporation council, with 10 people, I'm sure that we could have a negative.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So why don't we make it 9? Then we wouldn't have.
So, Mr. Chair,
I'm just making notes here because this will go back to executive committee.
so I think just for those who are not at the executive committee, why the discussion was a bigger number was if you had 5 could just bring any action to the county board, then you're kind of just working around the committee process. So if any 5 could just bring an action to the county board, at this point, you don't have to have committees. And that was part of the conversation piece. So that's why a larger number was kind of discussed. Obviously, there's some homework we got to do.
But yeah, I think 9 probably.
9 would work.
9 could work.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's take a vote. Ready to have a vote on item A. It's just again a straw vote, and this will come back next month when you have a chance to think about it some more. Do you support adding a provision that allows a group of 5 county board supervisors to refer an item to the county board chair for committee assignment if the respective committee chair is unwilling to place the item on the committee's agenda? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye. Yes.
Opposed?
No.
Yeah. So we'll go with the positive there. All right. Do you support adding provision that allows a group of 10 or 9, as suggested, county board supervisors to co-sponsor action to bring it before the county board if the relevant committee takes no action or takes adverse action on the matter? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Put that as a positive, so we'll bring that forward.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Winnicky.
just want to take a second to thank everybody because this is invaluable to the executive committee. And I feel pretty confident we can put something together for March that will meet everyone's approval. And I know it took a lot of people's valuable time. So thank you again.
Thank you for the guidance. Okay, takes us to item 12, Finance Committee, resolution denied claim for damages by Peggy Kirk.
Point of order.
Oh,
We
yeah.
need to bring the rules back. We suspended them.
Oh, yes. We have need to,
I mean, you suspended the rules just as it relates to allowing that straw poll. So I think
So we're okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I would
Thank you.
think, yeah. Okay. So Finance Committee resolution denying a claim for damages by Petty Kirk. Supervisor Jones. Supervisor Jones?
Supervisor Jones, can you hear us?
No, ask him again.
Supervisor Jones, can you hear us?
Yes,
Okay.
he disappeared for a little while there.
So you're up for resolution denying claim for damages to Betty Kirk.
Resolution number 2023.
67.
Thank you. A claim has been made against Jefferson County for damages. The claim has been reviewed by the county's insurance carrier, WIMIC, and was recommended for disallowance based on the finding that the county has no liability for this claim and is not legally responsible for the alleged damages. This resolution formally denies the claim filed against Jefferson County and directs the Corporation Council to give the claimant notice of disallowance. The Finance Committee considered this resolution on February 7, 2024, and recommending forward to the County Board for approval. Fiscal note, this matter has been referred to Wisconsin Municipal Mutual Insurance Company, WIMIC, and will be resolved in accordance with terms of the county's policy. Mr. Chair, I move for passage of this resolution.
Second.
I have a second from Supervisor Christensen. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, passed by voice. Takes us to the next resolution by Finance Committee, amending the 2024 budget for Emergency Management Department. This will require a 2/3 vote.
Resolution number 2023-68. In order for Jefferson County and its municipalities to receive grants for emergency management, Jefferson County must submit a natural hazard mitigation plan to the state of Wisconsin every 5 years. The county contacts with Civic Tech Consulting to complete its plan at a cost of $28,000. Jefferson County received $21,000 of emergency management planning grant dollars for this service. The Emergency Management Department currently has $4,000 budgeted for this study in 2024. The department is seeking approval for acceptance of these grant dollars in the amount of $21,000 and wishes to increase the 2024 budget expenditures by $21,000 and reclassify $3,000 of other expenses previously budgeted to accommodate the cost of this study. On January 3rd, 2024, the Finance Committee reviewed the request from the Interim Emergency Management Director and recommended forwarding this resolution to County Board to accept the grant funding of $21,000 and classification of other expenses as detailed on the attached budget amendment form and create a budget amendment for 2024. Fiscal note, please see the attached budget adjustment or amendment request form for the proposed adjustments to the 2024 budget. This is a budget amendment. County Board approval requires a 2/3 vote of the entire membership of the County Board, 20 votes of the 30-member County Board. Mr. Chair, I move for passage of this resolution.
Moved by Mr. Jones. I have a second. Second by Supervisor Morse. Discussion? Questions? If not, it's roll call vote.
Supervisor Jones?
Yes.
Supervisor Christensen?
Yes.
Supervisor Roberts?
Yes.
We have 28 yes and 0 no, 1 absent.
Thank you. The resolution passes. Human Resources Committee, ordinance amending ordinance 2012-06, civil service ordinance to change the promotional process used for promotions to detective, sergeant, captain, and chief deputy. This will require a 3/4 vote.
Ordinance number 2023-22.
22.
The Sheriff's Office has been utilizing a commercial written exam since 2021 through Stannard and Associates for a promotional process for the positions of detective, sergeant, captain, and chief deputy. All of the exam questions were created through approximately 2,000 plus pages of source material. Much of this material is theoretical in the case of sergeant and captain exams, not specific to any job duty. The material is also not specific to Jefferson County Sheriff's Office or Wisconsin. In an effort to align the promotional process with the specific needs of the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department, the following amendments to the Civil Service Ordinance are proposed. 1. Changing the initial step of the promotional process from the written examination to an oral examination conducted by 4 or 5 person law enforcement supervisory panel. 2, adjusting the weights of the steps in the promotional process on the scoring matrix to account for the law enforcement supervisory panel's oral examination and the chief deputy and/or sheriff interviews. 3, opening candidate selection for the captain promotional process to individuals outside of the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office personnel in the event that no eligible candidates within the Sheriff's Office are qualified. And 4, adding the requirement for candidates to have a high school diploma or its equivalent. On February 8th, 2024, the Civil Service Commission and the Human Service Committee reviewed the proposed amendments to the Civil Service Ordinance and both recommended forwarding to the County Board for approval pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 5926-8D, amendment to the Civil Service Ordinance requiring an affirmative vote of 3/4 of the members elected to the County Board. And before you, we have the whole ordinance, and if you flip through it, you'll see the red sections are the changes that have been made along the way. I move for passage.
Moved by Supervisor Brogler, second by Supervisor Morris. Questions, discussion? Seeing none, so we have a roll call vote. It requires a 3/4 board vote.
Supervisor Jones,
Yes.
Supervisor Roberts,
Yes.
Supervisor Christensen.
Yes.
We have 28 yes, 0 no, 1 absent.
Thank you. The ordinance passes. Ordinance change passes. Takes us to resolution creating a pool of seasonal limited term LTE positions for watercraft inspection in the Land and Water Conservation Department. Mr. Brogler.
Resolution number 2023-69. This resolution proposes the establishment of a pool of limited term employees LTE positions for watercraft inspectors in Jefferson County, Wisconsin. These positions are intended to support the ongoing efforts to prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species in local water bodies. Preferably, the positions will be filled by interns or students studying in relevant fields, offering them practical experience while contributing to the environmental conservation efforts. This resolution requests the creation of a pool of limited term employees positions for watercraft inspections in the Land and Water Conservation Department was reviewed by the Human Resources Committee on January 3rd, 2024. The Human Resource Committee recommended forwarding this resolution to the County Board to create a pool of limited term employment positions for watercraft inspectors in the Land and Water Conservation Department. Fiscal note. The creation of the seasonal LTE watercraft inspector positions will be primarily funded through the grant as specified in Resolution 2023-37. Additional costs, if any, will be accommodated within the county's existing budget for environmental initiatives. Therefore, no additional tax levy is required for these positions. I move for passage of Resolution 2023-69.
Moved by Mr. Brogler, seconded by Mr. Morris. Questions, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, resolution passes. Takes us on to item 14, Parks Committee Ordinance, amending the Jefferson County Parks Ordinance regarding park and trail hours. Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have ordinance number 2023-23. Jefferson County Parks, bike paths, park trails are invaluable assets to Jefferson County and provide recreational opportunities for users of all levels. The safety of park visitors and the safety of our park neighbors is a priority. The Jefferson County Parks Department recognizes a need to have uniform year-round hours of operation for the safe and equitable use of our Jefferson County parks, bike paths, and trails. This amendment to the Jefferson County Parks Ordinance changes park and trail closed hours from 1/2 hour after sunset until 1/2 hour before sunrise to 10 p.m. until 5 a.m., with the exception of Rock River County Park, Cappy's Landing, Highway 16 Wayside County Park, and Burnt Village County Park, which allow access to the boat launches during closed hours for egress purposes. The county board previously considered and approved these proposed amendments at its meeting on September 12, 2023, via Resolution 2023-32. This ordinance ratifies the accepted changes and allows for timely publication as required by law. The Parks Committee considered this ordinance amendment at its meeting on February 8, 2024, and recommended forwarding to the county board for approval. Fiscal note, there is no fiscal impact to this amendment, to the Jefferson County Parks Ordinance. I move for adoption of this ordinance.
Second.
Moved, and who was the second? Second was to Mr. Gulick. Questions? Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, passes on voice. Resolution authorizing motorized recreation grant application to fund Jefferson County Snowmobile Trail Aid Program.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have resolution number 2023-70. Jefferson County participates in the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Snowmobile Trail Aid Program funded by a Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources motorized recreation grant, which provides funding for the development and maintenance of approximately 229.4 miles of public snowmobile trails in Jefferson County. Applying for these grant funds requires county board authorization. This resolution authorizes the Jefferson County Administrator to submit a Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources motorized recreation grant application seeking funds for snowmobile trail maintenance and development and to administer the funds according to the grant requirements. The Parks Committee considered this resolution at its February 8th, 2024 meeting and recommended forwarding to the county board for approval. Fiscal note. The Snowmobile Trail Aid Program is expected to cost approximately $68,820 for winter of 2024-2025. 100% of this cost is funded by grants, and the anticipated grant funds have been included in the adopted budget for 2024. The Jefferson County Finance Director may make any necessary budget adjustments for additional miles. Mr. Chairman, I move for adoption of this resolution.
Moved by Mr. Christensen, seconded by Mr. Gulick. Questions? Discussion? Questions on how much snow we're going to get? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, resolution passes. Resolution accepting a bid for the construction and installation of a recreation bridge on Interurban Trail Phase 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have resolution number 2023-71. The Jefferson County Parks Department is continuing construction of a multi-use recreational trail on utility right-of-way owned by We Energies. The proposed trail is 10.96 miles and is located on the former interurban rail line between the city of Watertown and the city of Oconomowoc. The path cross-section will consist of 10-foot wide asphalt surface with 2-foot wide aggregate shoulders. The project includes 10 miles of trail within Jefferson County and 1 mile of trail in Waukesha County. The city of Watertown and the city of Oconomowoc are the project boundaries. The trail will act as an extension of the Lake Country Trail and eventually connect to the city of Pewaukee. This project has completed 2 of 3 phases of construction consisting of 7 miles of trail. Multiple federal
and state grants have been awarded for the third phase of the project, totaling $1,735,665. A part of Phase 3 of this project is to build and install a 150-foot long two-span recreation bridge over the Rock River on the corridor between County Highway F and Rockvale Road in the town of Ixonia. The bridge incorporates the original electric rail car abutments and pier. Design, engineering, and permitting have been completed. Jefferson County Parks bid out the construction and installation of the recreation bridge for Phase 3 of the Interurban Trail and received bids on Monday, February 5th, 2024 at 10 a.m. The Parks Committee reviewed and submitted bids at its meeting on February 8th, 2024, and recommended forwarding this resolution to the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors to accept the bid of Yankee General Contractors at the lowest as the lowest responsible bidder for the completed project. Fiscal note. This project was included in the 2024 Jefferson County Parks Department budget. Number is listed for $782,064. There will be an additional 10% contingency requested with this project, $55,643.90, as well as construction oversight contract provided by KL Engineering for $52,775. The total estimated project cost to completion $664,854.90. Total donation and grants for this project is $294,499. On March 8th, 2023, the County Board approved carryover funds in the amount of $513,182 for Phase 3 of this project. Total carryover applied to this portion of the project is $370,356.90. Mr. Chairman, I move for adoption of this resolution.
Second. Who made a second? I can't.
I'll second it.
All right, second by Tony Gulick, by Supervisor Gulick. Questions? Discussion? Not all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes by voice. Item D, resolution authorizing amended and restated memorandum of agreement between Jefferson County and Groundswell Conservancy Incorporated, amending the 2024 Parks Department budget. This will require a 2/3 vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have resolution number 2023-72, and they're not getting any shorter. Jefferson County Parks Department has been working with the Groundswell Conservancy Incorporated and the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources for over 5 years to acquire a parcel of property along Highway A in the town of Lake Mills, known as the Treeloft property. This 42-acre parcel is located along the edge of Marsh Lake, as indicated in the attached map. The parcel is part of Lake Mills Wildlife Area project boundaries and provides an opportunity for both public conservation and public access to Marsh Lake and Rock Lake for a variety of nature-based outdoor recreation activities. In February of 2022, County Board of Supervisors passed a resolution authorizing Jefferson County to work cooperatively with Groundswell Conservancy for the acquisition, management, and future development of the Treeloft property. Since that time, Groundswell Conservancy, with the assistance of Jefferson County, has negotiated a purchase agreement with the Treeloft property owner and secured grant funding to cover the purchase price. As part of the process, a Phase 1 environmental site assessment was completed, which disclosed soil contamination required remediation. Jefferson County and Groundswell have obtained cost estimates and determined that remediation of the soil contamination can be completed for a total estimated cost of $78,792. To assist Groundswell in its efforts to acquire the property, Groundswell and Jefferson County have negotiated the attached amended and restated memorandum of agreement, which obligates Jefferson County to secure the estimated funds necessary to complete the remediation process and obtain a case closure letter from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. Jefferson County has solicited donations from community partners and engaged in fundraising to satisfy this obligation. This resolution authorizes the county administrator to enter into the attached amended and restated memorandum of agreement between Jefferson County and the Groundswell Conservancy Incorporated. The Jefferson County Parks Committee considered this resolution at its meeting on February 8th, 2024, and recommended forwarding to the county board for approval. Fiscal note. This resolution increases beginning restricted fund balance and expenses in the Parks Department budget by $26,742.48 and reclassifies funds in the amount of $112,500 that were previously carried forward for the tree loft acquisition from ending restricted fund balance to expense. This resolution authorizes the finance director to make the necessary budget adjustments as described herein to enact this resolution. This is a budget amendment. Passage of this resolution requires a 2/3 vote, 20 of the 30 members of the full Board of Supervisors. Mr. Chairman, I move for adoption of this resolution.
Moved by Supervisor Christensen, seconded by Supervisor Callen. Questions? Discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Supervisor Jones,
Yes.
Supervisor Roberts,
Yes.
Supervisor Christensen,
Yes.
we have 27 yes, 1 no, and 1 absent.
So passes by roll call vote, 27-1. Thank you. Takes us to Planning and Zoning Committee report. Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Report to the honorable members of the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors. The Jefferson County Planning and Zoning Committee, having considered petitions to amend the official zoning map of Jefferson County, filed for public hearing held on January 18th, 2024, as required by law pursuant to Wisconsin statutes. Notice thereof having been given and being duly advised of the wishes of the town boards and persons in the area affected, hereby makes the following recommendations as listed. Which moves me to ordinance number 2023-24, amending of the official zoning map. Whereas the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors has heretofore been petitioned to amend the official zoning map of Jefferson County, and whereas petitions as listed were referred to the Jefferson County Planning and Zoning Committee for public hearing on December 21st, 23, and whereas the proposed amendments have been given due consideration by the Board of Supervisors in open session, now therefore be it ordained that the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors does amend the official zoning map of Jefferson County as follows, as listed. I move for adoption of this ordinance, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Richardson. Questions, discussion? Mr. Kennard.
I'll abstain for potential conflict of interest.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the ordinance passes. Takes us, even though this is misnumbered here, this would be item 16. Actually, appointments by county board chair. By virtue of the authority vested in me under section of 59.548, I hereby request a confirmation of following appointments. Kim McGarrison, media representative to the Local Emergency Planning Committee, LEPC, for an indeterminate term. I request your nomination. Request
So moved.
your second. So moved and seconded seconded by Mr. Dagner. Moved by Mr. Morris. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Let's see, 14, 15, 16, 17. Item 17, public comment of a general nature. We have someone in the back. These would be items that are not on the agenda.
He had signed up first.
Yep.
Good evening. Oh, sure. Better? Great, thank you. Good evening. My name is Leanna Spencer, and I am the Lake Manager for the Lake Ripley Management District. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you tonight. I am here on behalf of the district to register our full support for the proposed county-wide construction site erosion and sediment control ordinance and the post-construction stormwater management ordinance. During the county board meeting on October 10th, 2023, the board had good discussion about the two proposed ordinances. During that meeting, the board decided to refer both ordinances back to the Planning and Zoning Committee. Per the minutes of this county board meeting, both of the ordinances were originally moved for adoption before being sent back to Zoning Committee for further review. On October 30th, 2023, the Zoning and Planning Committee permanently and indefinitely postponed action on both the construction site erosion and sediment control ordinance and the post-construction stormwater management ordinance, respectively. During that meeting, Waymire asked whether the committee would like to direct staff in a certain way. Suggestions included coming back with more ideas and more technical information, financial ramifications, and input from towns. Reading that in the meeting minutes led me to believe that the zoning committee would be doing more research before discussion could happen. However, the decision to indefinitely and permanently postpone action on these ordinances does not seem like what the county board asked for, which was further review of the ordinances. It was unclear per the meeting minutes why the two ordinances were permanently and indefinitely postponed. I am hoping for some clarification on this. Furthermore, Zoning Director Matt Zingel stated during the January 17th, 2024 Land and Water Conservation Committee meeting that the Zoning Department had heard back from some towns and villages and had an update to report. Therefore, I assumed this issue was going to be on the upcoming Zoning Committee's agenda for January 29th, but it was not. I attended that meeting to see if there was going to be any mention or discussion of the ordinances, and unfortunately, there was not. The district supports both ordinances that have been proposed. The construction site erosion and sediment control ordinance will serve to reduce the amount of sediment, phosphorus, and other pollutants to our natural resources, resulting from runoff from land-disturbing construction activity. The post-construction stormwater management ordinance will establish long-term post-construction runoff management requirements that will diminish the threats to public health, safety, welfare, and our aquatic environments. It is my understanding that these ordinances are for building site construction issues and stormwater management issues and are not related to, nor are intended to affect, any agricultural practices. There are agricultural exemptions, which we also support. The real issue, especially around Lake Ripley, is construction sites and the amount of sediment that gets delivered to our water bodies. Most of our surrounding counties already have erosion control and stormwater management ordinances. Why don't we have these yet? How did we end up so far behind everyone else? The district fully encourages and supports the county pursuing these two important ordinances to help protect our natural resources. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Gross, Supervisor Gross?
Yes. Just to the other board members and the public that attended the DNR meeting on the 25th of January, just to let you know that the EPA did require they've already passed another 25% reduction in PM level. Okay, they didn't change the size of the 2.5 micron, but they lowered it from 12 to 9 micrograms. So, we've been, because, different companies, I checked into it myself. This won't be into effect to another 18 months, but it'll be just using more energy to do the same type of thing to make these facilities compliant both in the non-compliant area and compliant areas, so for expansion. On a lighter note, though, I want to thank the board for approving the advisory board for the Fair Park because it's a phenomenal team, and I want to shout out to Michael and Michaela and Lacey and Joy for doing a great job on the Fair Park. And last night I was at the Town of Concord board meeting, and I couldn't believe the response, for sponsors. I had 10 of these, and I didn't have enough, so there was a lot less people there than there is here tonight. So I thought I printed out 12 copies this morning. Maybe I might get the same kind of response here, because what's been happening at the Fair Park. So just shout out to you, the county board members, for approving the advisory board, because I think hopefully things will turn around there at the Fair Park. So thank you for your time.
Anyone, any other public comment here? Or any public comment or announcements? I don't know. You got your hand up for some reason. What? Is it a public comment?
Yes.
Okay.
As my political career comes to an end, I realize that it's far easier to criticize other people than to do the job yourself. Last term, we had a contentious issue where somebody had said they had done some research, and it now occurs to me that they were the person in the room who was actually attempting to do their job, that if I had done my job, I would have done my research before the vote, not after. And there were also 26 other people that day who voted, who I guess I could say left room for their research into how safe a liquid natural gas tank was. And for everyone's information, in Raven, Kansas, about a year ago, a tower caught fire. You could see the flames for miles, and the local town had to be evacuated. So it's yet another example of how safe liquid natural gas facilities are. Thank you.
Mr. Christensen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe this is public comment. Last night, excuse me, I was at the Town of Sumner's February meeting, and in that meeting, there was some discussion of the damage and destruction caused by the tornado that went through the town. The town chairman, John Donor, expressed great appreciation to our county highway department for having a couple people and trucks come out and assist them and help drive the roads and look for damage. I believe that's what he was referring to. Since Brian Udovich is here tonight, he can relay that thank you back to his department. That's what I have for you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Christensen. Any announcements? I have one. I hope you all received an email from our court system. I believe it's tomorrow. We have our graduation from the drug and alcohol program. I have gone to that 3 times. I can't attend tomorrow because I have another meeting, but I highly encourage, if you can, go, because it always moves me to go and see what these people go through and what they've had to overcome and how well that program's working. Do you recall the time? Is that?
It's at 2:30.
2:30, and it's in the
one of the upstairs courtrooms.
In the courtrooms. I mean, it's well worthwhile attending if you can. So that's my only announcement. With that, I'll entertain it. Any other announcements? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I couldn't catch who said them, but I think it was Meg was one of them. I saw a lot of hands here. Pick one. This is not debatable. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we're adjourned.
Guess what? Those people that said they'd never been.
That was one that